Louis aha chusust. He mixo hal equals klahat. Naham kas hand hachichik spinkt. Yat aha tihon misa atet utlis genihos. Kasapi iskelu and kelus chinam. Shaj koquilstum soch aha item hulau. Isatid ach palau natlitemil. Lut ku shaquaitlamis. Apanach my solomintum. Ach eat in koquiltons sklahat.
I guess I first became passionate about language when I was at my great-uncle's funeral.
And that was the first time that she found out that he spoke Salish. Up until that point, she didn't know that there were any speakers in her family.
And I really didn't have any idea what that meant, or I had never heard our language spoken.
Somebody stood up and said, you know, we've lost another speaker, and who's going to take his place?
Who's going to pick up where he left off? This man was a fluent speaker, and now he's gone.
She decided that it was going to be her, and so that kind of started on her language journey.
When she came home, she was just on fire with it. She said, I'm going to do that. I'm like, okay, right on. How you going to do that? I don't know, but I'm going to do that. It's our language, it's my language, I'm going to do that.
It just intrigued me, and it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that my uncle spoke, and what is this connection that I've been missing?
Ashley scaled, even Kastanzi Suyapi, Utiati Stihulam, Apana, Lutali Touch, and Kaluchinum, Eskalu. O Asel Carlson, Uping Sulasil, Kai Team to UNESCO, Unil Chahanut Ian Selchin.
Osa Chiapo, Kaltum Kula, so Lutne when a Kailson, Tausta Chamala, Lut Makalson. Chutistum tima, chusis, qusis, lutax, the kelufton tamas qusqasia, atletum iutlu, or some ne ipa iut.
Tokasapi in Coqueltons, in Quillamans, Iskeluk inatuil, Shachiap I Suyapi ko ahayitim hulau, Hoist o such sich iskailt, Sach Itza, typhus, measles, Saha, malaria, Skum, Bunuhitali. Ihahan lupingst to hutch cheeks iskelu, ko in itok America, auto to such seat iskailt. Isuyapi truhois iskailt, Buhnil homings, cos k hoist iskelu totem hulavso. Shach kaihostum, iskelu ch solamist ian kulmans, ian quiltons, istruhotans ultem hulau. Iwaso mintum item hulaus, isuyapi homings, cos fluentum iskelu chau.
And those epidemics were then followed by a brutal colonial genocidal policy of extermination in which Native kids were taken from their homes forcibly, placed in boarding schools, prohibited from speaking the language of their parents, their mothers, their fathers.
Sometimes they would be removed as young as 4 or 5 years old, and they wouldn't see their families again for 10 or 15 years.
He Kamantim or who's to make a Nax and Mamayatan. Eleos Nix to me a Kapkin, Juntam, Lutpankinax and Kalochan, Leo Kuikumis, Kalson, Sitzentum, Lutax, Colcoil Detan, Kalson, he. The Gmakan Samach and Ax Colcoiled.
When the boarding schools became supported by or operated by the Americans, then that's where the cultural clashes and the American assimilationist aims really took hold.
I soldier Henry Richard Pratt ach eat me kulam I kissen mat maetin hikos geluch. I suyapi il mi humwixoch ul kulamuch niut kissen mat maetin hikoyati timhula.
The Indian, though a simple child of nature with mental faculties dwarfed and shriveled, while groping his way for generations in the darkness of barbarism, already sees the importance of education. Bewildered by the glare of civilization above and beyond his comprehension, he is nevertheless seeking to adjust himself to the new conditions by which he is encompassed.
They set out to create a whole federal system of boarding schools, and that was 1879 when the first Indian-only, federally supported and funded American Indian boarding school was established. But before that, there was lots of boarding schools out there for Indian kiddos. But that's the first time that the federal government was set up to run and fund these schools.
They had reveille, they marched in formation. Those schools were really organized almost as a military kind of structure.
Ach eat I quiles Jesuit kulamoch iksun mat maetin ikosio hulau. Humixo I skelu kus atipis yasu kri. Lut tali in kuskasios zeicht quiekt ut ninuis genumst I skelu.
By the time the Jesuits arrived here, they encountered people with rich spirituality who were very polyglot, multilingual. They spoke Salish dialects, Sahaptian dialects. They needed to do that to communicate with one another. So when the Jesuits came, they themselves were multilingual, but also didn't generally speak English. So the Jesuits were more interested in Catholicism and conversion than they were in assimilating these communities into being American.
Jesuits never felt the same degree of obligation to turn the Native Americans into American citizens. Their concern was different. They were interested in, first and foremost, making them into practicing Catholics.
So when these mission schools were created, oftentimes the kiddos were actually taught in their own language.
This is one of the first dictionaries of the Kalispel language in existence right here. So you can see it's handwritten. You can see the rather unusual alphabet indicated on the top here. You can see visually a record of the amount of effort the Jesuits put into learning native languages themselves.
Hikos jitjuich Iquiox dismit quos isen calmen huspaus. Hiko pix hinchilatius. Ol nax tausen team chichiks musloopings takums.
To my mind, anyway, the Sacred Heart mission among the Coeur d'Alenes got as close to Father de Smet's original concept as any mission in the Northwest. Among the Coeur d'Alenes, then the mission was just at the very heart of community life for many years.
Icocospioch desmit quos isen common Saint Ignatius. Humings icospioch mikus aum kuskayam kusautipis yasukri. Humings kolkamach nax in chuichtin kikwilio.
In terms of boarding schools, that was the largest boarding school that the Jesuits maintained. They were compensated from the government. They had upwards of over 100 students, boarding students, during those years.
Toscus Camilton soch icospiel Lewintum isen Calman co Saint Ignatius ut et hoicoltem hulasoch. Ilio naxtausen hachanut hachichikst uping surmus. Isu yapiculum quicuyuma I cospiel skolhulau.
It wasn't until much later, when missionaries were no longer being funded by the United States government, that they got transferred over or shut down, and that wasn't until like 1912.
They didn't know where they fit within their communities when they came home. They were neither like their families, but they also weren't American. I would say there are 2 or 3 legacies that we can view as sort of most impactful. The first is the disruption to culture, to Native cultures. If you can't speak your language, if you can't observe your traditional practices, if you can't be with your family, then you lose that engagement with your ancestral training and you become westernized, which was the goal.
Nachem iluti kaustami in Selchin. Ahais Jamala can heat silk in Kaluchin silk. Mi lut to solomintum. Yat so how ekos glahat in Selchin somewhat maitan. Takum uping feast Jamala, chmibin weaken oli in Selchin. In Selchini achcha eat in Quailtons kalahai temhulau.
So Salish School of Spokane is a grassroots nonprofit organization. We're here in the city of Spokane. That's fairly unusual. To the best of our knowledge, we're the only full-time Native American immersion school that's in an urban setting. Our mission is to preserve and revitalize Southern Interior Salish languages, all 4 of them. We now apply Salish to 22 Coast Salish languages and 7 Interior Salish languages. There are 4 Southern Interior Salish languages, all of them highly endangered. Okanagan in Selchin has a little better than 100 fluent surviving elders. Most are in British Columbia in the Okanagan Valley. Wenatchee Columbian in Khamchin has a single surviving fluent speaker who lives on the Colville Indian Reservation. Spokane Kalispel in Salishton has maybe 45 fluent speakers remaining. Most of those 35 are on the Flathead Reservation in Montana. And then Coeur d'Alene is the 4th Southern Interior Salish language. 2 surviving fluent elders, both in their 90s. We currently are able to serve 2 of our languages on our site, in Selchin, Colville Okanagan, and in Salishton, which is the Spokane Kalispel Salish. So we operate 2 child care centers and a private elementary school. Our child care centers enroll children from age 1 to 5, and our elementary school currently serves 17 kids from kindergarten through 4th grade. We also have a fairly robust community language program. We're able to host a variety of Salish language courses through the week. We have Kalispel Salish on Tuesdays, Colville Salish on Wednesdays and Thursdays, Spokane Salish on Thursdays, and we have a Saturday Salish program as well. So we have about 50 adults regularly coming through the week, mostly parents of kids at our school, but other community members as well. We've been working to develop a comprehensive Salish language curriculum that allow new learners to go from 0 to fluency in a predictable and sequenced way. If you were able to study that curriculum full-time, you could become fluent in 1 year.
Wai isquis lauken kin upeng spint us isquis quile in the iu isquis swaken. Hello, my name is Kale Ray Edwin Nissen. I am 10 years old. My mom's name is Crystal Conant and my dad's name is Brian Nissen. I'm glad that I'm reviving my language. It's kind of sad to think about how that it was almost gone. It was this close to dying out.
He's a very bright person anyway, but since he's at the Salish school and he gets a lot of one-on-one with his teachers because of the small classroom sizes, he's 10 and he reads and comprehends as an 8th grader or higher.
When children know who they are and where they come from, they do way better in school. They just do way better in life.
Education studies know that when children are bilingual, their brains are just much more dynamic. These little kids speak the language far better than people of my generation.
The ultimate goal of Salish School of Spokane is to create a place where students can go from birth to they graduate from high school in their language with really strong cultural components so that they know who they are and where they come from.
Mis huit til takum tausen yin quailtons, hikotam hulau, nachem flin steel solk, as out dat dwells, ship uklamahai hutch cheek spinkt athel tausen. Ut hummingtit aus dem yin selchin, hummingtit min yag quatched, troll hwalt yin selchin. Ut kamahi steamed ol kasapi. His nun huinatit, his en keluchintit, kus plaka ikol dem hula, ikol skelu, his geistet, yatso halt, mis unilch is geistet.
Well, for me, growing up, I didn't know my language or my culture. And so as an adult, I've learned my language and my culture, and I've been able to pass on what I've learned to my children and my grandchildren. And that has changed my life.
These kind of efforts aren't just about language. They're also about confidence. They're also about healing from those traumas that our ancestors and we have gone through. And the language revitalization, again, isn't just about, you know, being able to speak words, but really being able to understand who you are and where you're from.
Salish is important because it's the language of this homeland, right? This homeland understands Salish, it hears Salish, it responds to Salish.
Each language is just like plants or animals. Each thing is so sacred. So they just have such individual power and purpose. And the same is true with our languages. That each language, you know, Washington State has so many endangered languages, and each of those are just like little jewels that we need to protect, and we all can have a part in protecting these languages.
The Salish School is reinvigorating our culture, it's reinvigorating our language, it's reminding this land and our peoples who we are and why we're here.
And I truly believe that our language is healing, and that through the language we can heal ourselves and our people.
And ultimately, this thing that's pretty overwhelming, that's so challenging to address, in the scheme of things, we'll look back and there'll just be a little bump in the road, and the language will be a respected part of what it means to live in this place.
Our language was taken from us in such a horrible way that it means even more to get it back. And this fight matters, because if we don't do it, it's just gone and it will never be again, and we will never, my grandchildren will never even hear it if I don't do what I'm doing to save it.
Net kun nu is dake kwel kweltin nem yo to is so kaskailu so kaskiput.
He luti kulementum sklahad in zelchins in mamaiten. Klem chachon upingspinkt luti stutjumala kul isnaxilu dach mipin wheatlini in zelchin. Abana kin ala ulkinink eluchinum isquis klaken. Ninuis kin klaklahap ixen keluchinum ix squisquasia.